Okay, hello everybody. My name is Myrna Clayton. I am so excited that you're here. I am executive director and founder of SHOWAbility, and what we do is support and promote performing artists on the disability spectrum. That's those who are born with a disability, acquired a disability, those with visible disabilities, and those with invisible disabilities. And we believe that everybody deserves a stage. And so we're excited that you're here because we know that if you're here, that means you are interested in being on stage. And whether that's theater, on film, on television, just a stage where, hello, someone can appreciate your talent, appreciate your gifts, appreciate what you can do. I'm excited you're here. As you know, for those of you that have been with us before, we've got our tech Guru Gary, who's going to walk through and talk through the the flow of things, so that just in case there any confusion. But I want to be able to support those that are blind and low vision. Also for those that are deaf, we have captioning going on for those that are deaf of hard hearing, and for those that are blind or low vision. We're going to be asking everybody, including myself, to describe ourselves. And so I am a yellow brown girl with short I don't know what you call this, short afro, kind of curly, kind of yellow, kind of red, kind of, it's colored. And I have on a blue and white uh, top. And there's a flower, a blue background in the background, as well as a lampstand that's on my side, and a flower and some lily flowers in the background. But I'm all blue and white today, and so I'm excited about that. And so we're asking everybody, if you can, to describe yourselves. And you know what, you can even do imaginary. You can be an imaginary person today if you want to. But anyway, that's me, Myrna Clayton, and I'm going to turn it over to Gary. And Gary, our guru Gary, is going to give us the 411 on what y'all need to know. Oh, Gary, you in blue too. Hey, today's blue day.
Hey, well, so I'm 6'5", I weigh 210 pounds. No, you said I can be anybody, right?
Right, you can't be anybody.
Yeah. Everybody, I'm happy to be here with you. I have reached salt and pepper status in my beard and my short hair. I'm a little bit darker brown than Myrna. I'm wearing a blue shirt and I have a virtual background, so it looks like I'm sitting in the office instead of where I'm actually sitting. Um, I'm going to be lurking in the background. You won't see my video, it'll be off, but I'm going to be watching the chat box. So if you have any questions or concerns during the broadcast, just type it in the chat. I'll try to help you out. If you lose connection, just log back on. I'll be watching the room also and let everybody in. And also what we like to do is, if we're not participating, we like to keep all our microphones muted, which I see everybody did. Wow, thank you, everybody. We try to keep the dogs in the background and the babies in the background from interrupting our wonderful guest today. So with that said, Myrna Clayton.
Awesome, awesome, Gary. Thank you. And when I said describe, we want everyone, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. You can either put them in the chat or kind of raise your hand, and you can, raise the imaginary, raise hand kind of a situation. And so either Gary or Maya will chime in with that. But without further ado, you guys, we have a wonderful video before. Oh, wait. Hello. You're here to welcome Miss Wheelchair Miss Wheelchair Georgia, Miss Wheelchair USA, Miss Wheelchair International, YVETTE PEGUES. And I want to, before we even start our conversation, I'd like for you guys to check out a video that will share a little bit of information. It's only two and a half minutes, but I'd like for you to check that out. And so, Gary, if you don't mind pulling that up, and then I'm going to bring YVETTE on so we can have a conversation.
I do so much more since I've been in the wheelchair, and I expected to do so much less, which is just irony. I was a networking and system engineer, and life seemed great until it wasn't. They said you have a congenital condition, it's 1 in a million. Anyone would say that my brain injury happened to me, but I would say that it happened for me because I was able to turn the worst thing that ever happened to our family into the best thing that happened to other people. Even as someone with a disability, I'm able to still use my engineering skills to advocate for others and test new and exciting technology as someone with a disability. I go out and I support other people with disabilities. I hear what they want and what they need. And so trying out new equipment and giving feedback on new equipment is like being the voice of the voiceless. It's just a way to connect with my kids, to connect with others, and to prove that it's possible. And there's so many incredible opportunities to be on both sides of technology. I get to do that in a way that brings adaptability forward, that will change the world and the way individuals with disabilities see and adapt to the world. It's not impossible to live forward after a life-changing event.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary. Woohoo. Woohoo, woohoo. Yes, 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 yes. And without further ado, Miss Wheelchair Georgia, USA, International, and all around amazing lady, Yvette PEGUES. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Wonderful. Wow, that was really great. Well, everybody can give you applause, give your shout outs. Yay, yay, yay on that. You know, we're so excited to have you here. Thank you. Thank you. And you're looking lovely, girl.
Thank you, thank you. You know what? It's the joy of the Lord because I don't always feel pretty. In fact, after I've introduced myself physically, I'll tell you a little bit about that.
Okay.
A woman of color. I'm wearing glasses that are clear, and the metal is silver around my glasses. My hair is parted on the right side and flipped on the left side. I'm wearing kind of an army green shirt with a brown arrow shaped necklace around me. And behind me, I actually have a clock as my background. And, you know, with that said, I remember my mom saying pretty early on, you can either be smart or you could be pretty. So I became an engineer. So I'm really still getting used to the words pretty, but I'm also excited to be able to say we can be both. We can intersect in so many different areas, and we all know beauty is on the inside.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love your mom saying hello, but excuse me, you can be both, and you are. And so, hello. Now we can just kind of adjust that thing and say you can be both, and you're that example. You know what? Um, Before we get into some other things, I want to just kind of deal with the title. Um, how did you find out about the fact that there was or there is a Miss Wheelchair Georgia pageant? How did you even find that out?
I'm so glad you asked. After my injury, I was approached actually by the director of the Miss Wheelchair USA program. I was at the time working with children in our community who were on the autism spectrum. And I had no idea that for this pageant, your talent was your community service. And I'll tell you, as an engineer, the first few times I was asked, I was not interested because, again, I thought I was smart, not pretty. But then when I found out that it's about how you serve others as a way into and a means to be able to serve as Miss Georgia at the time, I still had some doubts. But then when she went on to say, well, you know, you can help children on the spectrum, not just in your community, but in your state, if you win the pageant. And of course, if you win the national pageant, you can help these children around the country. So she pulled me in.
Well, oh
You
yeah.
know,
Whoop, 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 whoop. Yep, 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 yep. Wow. So now where was the pageant in for Miss USA, and did you have to go outside of Georgia, and then for the international did you have to go outside of the US?
yes and yes.
Okay.
So the local pageant was, of course, local. They looked for all of the local women in wheelchairs. I believe it's about 75% usage of a mobility device to be able to qualify. And so that was local. And then the USA pageant was in Ohio. International was remote because we were moving into the place we are now around COVID.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that works. I guess that kind of worked out in your favor. You didn't have to be on the plane for forever long. Wow. Wow. So you guys were doing like some of the first virtual pageantry that the rest of us kind of got engaged in, right?
Pretty much. One of the things about the international pageant that was limiting the expansion was visas and getting people from other countries into the chosen location. We thought about London, we decided on Florida, but the administration at the time and with everything happening in the country, there were some things that were put on hold and we had to do some things remotely.
Wow. Now, one other quick question about just pageantry. Do you know if there are other pageants for other disabilities like blind or deaf, or are there others?
Not yet. In fact, the Miss Wheelchair USA pageant is one of only 2 national pageants for women in wheelchairs. And that's Miss Wheelchair USA. And then there's this Miss Wheelchair America. And I believe we should have more because pageants themselves probably are at about 4,000. There's at least 4,000 to 4,500 different pageants around the world, and only 2 for women in wheelchairs. I think there's probably only maybe 1 for men, and there are no varied pageants around, but someone's got to be the first.
Absolutely. And also for children.
There's a lot for children. I think that's included in the 4,000 number. There's quite a bit.
No. I mean, in terms of children with wheelchair, children with disabilities.
I have seen a special needs pageant. I don't know how official it is, and I don't believe it's national. So there is at least one, maybe several that happen at the very early ages, maybe like 0 to 5, maybe 7.
Wow. Now, Yvette, you are so stylish. Do you design your clothes? Are you a designer, or do you have a stylist, or is this all you?
Well, if you're offering, I definitely trust your, your expertise. But no, in fact, prior to the pageant, I didn't wear makeup. I was not concerned about my hair other than just being clean. That's another reason why I said no, because I just refused to wear pink. I knew that I would not wear makeup, and I certainly did not want to do anything like this. I was totally against bling. And so fortunately, my training, like my mother was just an amazingly beautiful woman, and she tried to get me to be more girly. So I attribute my fashion, my girliness, and my even wearing makeup to the pageant. It changed me in so many ways.
Wow. Now that the whole girly thing. Now, so that leads to a question that I have. Were you always adventurous, or is this new? I mean, were you into sports and stuff? Because I'm seeing these adaptive sports that you do. So were you always like that, or is this new too?
It's absolutely new. Right now, I think I'm up to about 21 different adapted sports. Prior to my traumatic brain and spinal cord injury, I ran track. I played volleyball. My physique was such that I looked athletic, but I don't know that I was as interested in sports prior to my injury than I was post-injury. As a child, obviously, I played football with my brother, whatever I could do to get on his nerves. But otherwise, no, organized sports were not a major interest for me.
Wow. So now 21, let me just name some of these for folks, because you do scuba diving, you've done skydiving,
Yes.
horseback riding, golfing, skateboarding, skiing,
Water ski and snow ski,
oh,
sled hockey. Just like I did a paratriathlon. So we did the walk run race with the varied equipment at the Shepherd Center, and just so many more. I have 2 boys, as you saw maybe in the video, so I have to remain competitive.
yes. Yeah. And so weren't you scared, or was there a fear factor there at all, or you, or just was there a fear factor in any of
Not,
those?
not really. I don't know if something happened to my frontal cortex, my decision making with my brain injury. I just felt free. You know, most any sport that I can do outside of my chair or an adapted motorized or manual piece of manual equipment for me was just amazing. And as an advocate, I was having these conversations with individuals who trusted me in our community. And so how dare I not? So I got to the place where if I am recommending that individuals of all abilities to get out and do great things, then it required me to do the same.
Okay, now, with all of these things that you've done, tell me the truth. Is there something you say, I'll never do that again? Is there one that you would say, I'm done? That was just like over the top. Did it, got the t-shirt, I'm done.
No,
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 okay.
actually, I'm excited to always try something new. And because of my connections in the sports world, I am the official crash dummy. So motorsports is next. I'd love to get into a race car that was built for individuals with disabilities. My next venture that I'm hoping to do is actually learning to fly a plane in a cockpit that was originally created for individuals with disabilities or a wheelchair or an adapted device. So
Wow.
we'll
Now,
see.
did I see that you also, now because of your engineering background, you have some systems knowledge and all of that. So did I see on the video that you were, that they ask you about certain design elements as well?
Yes, I'm an actual crash dummy and I get to bring in some of my engineering skills. What you saw was the schematics for my Jazzy Air 2, which is height adjustable. And I'm able to go in there and work with the engineers and talk about what I like, what I don't like. I designed the fuchsia cover that's on there, and I helped design the different things that I believe our community might benefit from. Some of them are medical, some are commercial. So yes, I get to look at things and help them to bring out new models, new brands, and not just wheelchairs. So I think I did something for a toothbrush company. It's just, I've been just so blessed with opportunities that found me. After winning the Miss Wheelchair pageant, I had car companies allow me to use adapted vehicles like the one you saw in the video, and to be able to report back and have consumer input, as I encourage most people to do, because I was tired of sitting back and complaining about it. So I felt like I'm the consumer. I have the right to say what I like about it and to share what I don't like about it. And so to be able to do that officially became really important to me. And obviously, as a community organizer, I like to collect information for those who may not be in a circle where they can allow their voices to be heard.
That's amazing because, you know, when you were a guest speaker at our career day at the elementary school, and you entered the room, and then your chair elevated, and you were at teacher size, teacher height, with your you know, the kids were there, and their eyes just like, whoa, you you were like a transformer come to life. Talk
Exactly.
about that experience, and what were some of the questions that the children had for you, and that children typically have for you when they're meeting you for the first time, and meeting oftentimes a person with a disability or a wheelchair user for the very first time.
Right. First, thank you for inviting me. I love working with children, and I think that was third or fourth grade, maybe even younger, but I love their curiosity. I love the light in their eyes when they see something different. Much like you said, they thought I was a transformer, and I do that for the oohs and the ahs. I come in kind of at the level that they expect, and then I elevate for this psychologically safe height. Because as someone in a wheelchair, I know I felt, I don't know, I felt different when someone would have to physically look down at me to have a conversation, and we didn't have that eye contact. So in that classroom, I also came in at that level so I could have eye contact with my 3 and 4 footers, right? And so I was able to elevate so they can see that I am not just a woman in a wheelchair at the height in which they expect me to be. So I love to change the image of disability that people expect. And at that age, they're so anxious to find out. And a lot of times they don't have filters, that I feel really good about questions like, well, how do you go to the bathroom? And how do you get in and out? How do you get out of bed? What happened to your legs? Or what happened to you? Why do you have to use it? What is it? Can I play with it? And I think at some point, I don't know if you remember, there was a student who asked me, well, how does it work? And I said, well, come up front and I'll show you. And he was able to come up front, and with my seatbelt on, of course, and with the wheelchair turned all the way down, I allowed him to use the joystick, move me forward, move me backward, and then I think he moved me left or right. And of course, he became pretty popular after that because he got to move the transformer. But those are a lot of the questions that I have, and my answers are usually age appropriate. And if I'm in a grocery store or out on the town and someone's child chooses to ask me a question, I'm always excited to do so. And I assure the parents that there's no need to pull them back, because they need to understand the diversity of the world that they're growing up in. And to do that now and to be part of that, for me, is just such a blessing.
Now that's a great segue, because I wanted to ask you, because the general population from childhood, we've been taught not to point, not to stare. And so oftentimes parents tell, don't do that, stop that, all of that. What's the typical reaction when you enter a room? And then how do you respond to stares? How do you, because obviously you get them. And so just how do you handle that?
I have two answers for you.
Okay.
My first answer is how I used to respond.
Okay.
Especially in this chair, because it's a power chair and it's wider. There's a lot more equipment attached to it. So it takes up a little more space than a manual chair would. In fact, moving to a power chair made me feel a little embarrassed, because being so athletic, I'm thinking, wow, all my manual chair buddies are going to think that I'm lazy. But, for long distances and for, the health of my shoulder, I went to a power chair, and I used to feel like I was in the way. Like I would apologize when someone would run into my wheelchair. I would shrink in the room so that I didn't take up so much space. So there was a lot of shame and guilt that I had to work through and pray through and just live through. Today, of course, I love getting in the way. That's the whole point. I play so many adaptive sports, and I do all the work that I do in the community for the adapted equipment that's being used, right? I want to get in the way, because until we're in the way, no one knows that something's wrong. So I can tell you that I may not have been very open to the questions, and I think it really depends on the individual as to how open and ready they are to answer those questions. But today, I encourage it, and I think that my countenance invites individuals to come in. And I just want to segue in that I still have people pat me on the head and say, oh, look at you, your hair is done, oh my gosh, you're wearing heels. And I let them kind of talk through that, and I sometimes ask, hey, if that woman over there had her hair parted on the right side and was wearing heels, would you say the same to her? Not in a arrogant way, but to make sure they understand that the image of disability may not be what you think it is, but I am human. And because I'm in a wheelchair, it doesn't mean that I am not cognitive, although I do have some cognitive delays, but I want to be able to use that time to educate individuals. So I love the questions, and I know that the stares are not always pleasant stares, but I try to always be welcoming in that. To serve puts me in a position of serving others, and not the perception of most that I am sitting around waiting to be served. And so I want people to know as I go out that I can serve others, and I can do things, and I can work, and I can give. And those are the situations I think I get the most questions and the most accolades and the most interaction with others. So I hope that answered your question in a long way.
No. I love it. I love it because you gave all very, very necessary information. And that kind of wants me to now think, because in service, I want to go in two different directions as it relates to service. First of all, you're a mom and a wife. And so serving your family is paramount to you, I know. And so tell me about service as it relates to, how did your family adjust to your circumstance, the change in the household, um, and then I want to shift to service because you're operating in your purpose. And so I want to shift to that. So first family, because that's where we serve first, and
Right.
then to the community and in the greater community.
Thank you for asking. My family has been amazing. After my surgery, going in for brain surgery and not walking back out because of the complications with my spine, it was a huge transition and it was a very long recovery time. So for the first few weeks and maybe even months, I was horizontal. I was on a lot of medication, didn't really do much but sleep and get turned. So I didn't get pressure sores. And my son came home one day with a note from his teacher, and his teacher wanted to know how she should respond to the questions he was asking her. And that question was, is my mommy going to die? And so in that moment, I realized that I was scaring my children. Like they didn't know enough to know that mommy is recovering and her body needed to rest. So what I did in that moment was I tied myself upright and I made sure my eyes were open and bright and cognizant, right? And just ready to receive them in a way that included them even in my recovery. So one of the first things when we made our dream board, my youngest said, Mommy, I asked him, what would you like mommy to do better? Taking their temperature on a regular basis. And he was like, Mommy, I just want you to make macaroni and cheese again. So we cut out a picture of macaroni and cheese, we put it on the dream board, and including them in that conversation on a regular basis and taking their temperature helped them to grow up with no fear, but they still got bullied. They got bullied pretty badly in school because here's mommy with a chest brace and a neck brace and a wheelchair, trying to still be PTA mom, right? Trying to include them and soothe their hearts and fears. But they got bullied pretty badly, but they turned bullying into a book because they would tell their friends, listen, I'm fine. My house is fine. What's your problem? And so I took that into account as they wrote their book and used it for ministry, helping other kids to recognize what it feels like to be in a home when a parent is disabled or has a disability or a concern. So I included them every step of the way, and I allowed them to ask questions that might feel uncomfortable, just like I would any other child in public. And it really got to a point where now when people ask them, hey, what's wrong with your mom? They'll say, buy the book. Or they'll say, we're fine. And so as a result, I believe that their emotional intelligence has just shot through the roof. I could have never taught them to be so emotionally intelligent and to be so humble and kind to everyone. And they're boys, so they love anything tech. They take my stuff apart and sometimes they put it back together. As an engineer, I don't get as upset as I should, but they're older now. As you saw in the video, they help me in and out of my vehicle. And of course, my husband is my greatest fan. He's my pointer, he's my leader. He does have gray hair because of all the things that I do in the sports world. At some point, he just had to say, you know what? I trust you. I'm going to stay home for this one. I just can't. So, but otherwise, he's been amazing. So thank you for asking. I will tell you that there were some family members who were very uncomfortable with my new limitations and changes until I showed them that I have no limitations. I just do it differently. But it was difficult to lose friends and family members because they were afraid. They really didn't know how to approach me, and I didn't even know how to be approached. So it took a while, but for the most part, my family adapted pretty quickly.
That's amazing. And so with that, your purpose and your service to the community, um, the title was, having your, what happened to you brought you to your purpose. And so
Yes.
talk to us about that. Share with us about your purpose and what has God said, this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Okay. So thank you for your amazing questions. The answer to that one is my 80-20 rule. So prior to my injury, I depended 80% of what I knew, what I learned, the 10 years in college to become an engineer, you know, the executive position at a top 10 corporate technology organization. That was my 80%. The other 20% was everything else. And so after the injury and I lost the ability to walk, work, and talk, I finally opened this gift that I believe I was born with, and it was still shiny, that I never opened because I didn't think I needed it. And so what I realized is the 80-20 had to flip. 80% of who I was became who I was. Nobody could take away my personality, my superpower to love and engage with people. And that was laying dormant because I was so dependent on my success and climbing the ladder and making 7 figures until I had to owe 7 figures. When that flipped, my perspective changed. And what I realized was, this has always been my purpose, but the benefit of being in corporate America is starting to show up now, because as I advocate in corporate spaces, I can say, I get that, been there, right? But this is the way that it is. And that's, you know, the inclusion piece, not the exclusion piece, because it just fits so well together. Of course, I didn't know at the time, because just before things bottomed out, right? Everything was great until it wasn't. I had a Harvard scholarship. You know, I was working this great job. We were moving to Cambridge. At the time, I felt like my life was great until it wasn't. But I'm so glad that I got to, like you said, be of service, you know, and to be, instead of this ultra executive leader, but to be a servant leader. And you and what you do had a lot to do with that, because I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. I just knew I'd be an engineer until the day that I died, and that I would get rich and those things would happen. But finding myself was through the things that you do, volunteering for almost 2 years, state, federal level, becoming Miss Wheelchair International, the first woman of color. Even now, after all these years, there still hasn't been a Miss Wheelchair USA or International of color. And that's in both wheelchair pageants. So breaking that mold, and then, you know, going back to school with a cognitive disability. So neither one of my parents could read or write. So just finishing high school was a feat. But to get that far in my academics and then go back with a disability, that's a whole nother question. We can talk about that. But I can tell you it was a wall and it was a challenge, but it was something I think needed to be done. And I think I found myself. I don't know that I loved myself or people prior to my brain injury. I think it opened me up and allowed me to find myself. And I know this because of the responses I receive, the blessings that I receive, the relationships that have come out of this, including the one with you. So it is definitely my purpose. And how you know it is your purpose is because you love it and you do it for fun and you do it in your sleep. And I just have so much joy, and no one can take that away from me.
That's amazing. Wow. And I love that you, for those of you that don't know, Yvette's done a TED Talk, and so please go on YouTube and check that out if you haven't already. And she's speaking all over the world. This girl is not just in Georgia, not just the US, she's speaking all over the world. And so talk to us a little bit about what the TED Talk experience was like. You know, how was that? And also kind of what's kind of in the public speaking. I mean, what do I want to say? In the public speaking, is that where you kind of want to soar? Because I see public speaking and then motivational speaking and then ministering as 3 different things.
Yeah, it's
to
a
me.
lot.
So yeah, so where do you want to go? And then I want to open it up to others. So if they,
Okay.
you know, and I want to open it up to questions, because I can just ask you questions, but this is just not just me. So
Well, you've been
definitely want to
asking
open up to questions.
amazing questions, amazing. And I love that we have history together because you know me. I like that, you get me. So the TED Talk is about independability, right? And it's a word that I think we created, and your showability. So
Yes.
we're intersecting there. The independability for me was important because after my injury, my goal was to become independent. And for a little over a year, I had so much stress because I couldn't do everything all the time by myself. And finally it hit me. I'm thinking, wait a minute, I've never been independent. I've never done everything. I don't make my own equipment or clothes. I don't do anything by myself. And then, being a woman of faith, my trust and hope is in Christ. So it's like, wait, to think that I could be independent was heavy. And again,
Yeah.
maybe it's different from others, but I think as an engineer and as a linear thinker, I literally took what they said to be my therapy. So independability is about, yeah, I can be independently able with the help of others. It's what I do through education. It's almost as if, hey, I know a big deal in the disability community sometimes is parking, and going into those parking spaces, especially in my case where I have like a 6-foot ramp, having people park in that drawn area, that diagonal area where my ramp needs to exit, right? So how do I do that without educating the car that would normally do that, or the motorcycle that would normally do that? So the ability to collectively, through community, have this education and understanding. I've actually had people come to me and say, oh my gosh, you are so lucky. And my response is usually, wow, tell me more about that. And they'll say, well, you get this handicap parking spaces, you get to park up close, you get the special bathrooms, and everyone opens doors for you. And, I listen. And once I'm done, I say, wow, I never thought of it that way. Let's trade. And never have I ever had anyone say, yes, I'll take your legs and you take mine and walk away from here. Exactly. So again, that conversation is the opportunity to share that the more you know about me and the more I know about you, we can, connect collectively, create this inclusion that we talk about, but to truly do it. And that's the independability angle that I thought was really important. And, conversations that I had in that TED Talk gave examples of some of the things that people would have never thought about. And after that TED Talk, I had quite a few tears and individuals confessing their sins, if you will, but, thanking me for, having that conversation and being candid and maybe even a little bit funny. As far as future, I'm in seminary now, working on my doctorate. And so the expectation, of course, is for me to get on somebody's pulpit. That is not necessarily my journey. I feel like I'm a sent one, not a went one. So I'm already in my purpose, but if those letters behind my name will get me into some doors that may otherwise be closed, to educate, advocate, and I say advocate, activate, but mostly navigate. And I'll circle back because shortly after my disability, we started Your Invisible Disability Group, and it recognizes both invisible and visible disabilities. And that's our motto, right? To advocate and to navigate and educate. And so that happens within the community and it intersects. So each section of that, right? The educate part is the public speaking, right? It's going into businesses and organizations and having conversations like this one to educate. To advocate is what I love. It's what I learned immediately after my disability. It's showing up with policy, showing up, in Washington, D.C. on the steps where policy is written. It's advocating for individuals with disabilities and myself to make sure the very thing that created the ADA continues to expand to all others all the time, to the point where we work ourselves out of a job. Like, I shouldn't have to be having this conversation, but until I don't, I will. And then the navigation piece we do with our organization is what I didn't have. Being able to volunteer so much showed me that there is help out there. There are resources out there, and sometimes so much so that we can't find them. So the navigation piece is the 80-20 again, right? I want you to have an 80% yes rate. After you've had a disability, the last thing you want is to hear no every time you pick up the phone. So I want you to have an 80% yes rate because YVETTE sent you, because YVETTE has done her homework, because YVETTE has worked on policy, because YVETTE and her team are interviewing you to see what your exact customized needs are and pointing you in a direction to exactly what you need, and so that 20%, it just happens, but it's so much better to know that 80% of the time you pick up the phone, someone's going to say yes. So for me, wherever that intersects, I believe I'll be there. I think different people call it different things. So yes, it'll be teaching. Yes, in everything I say, I give God the honor and the glory. So there's going to be some preaching, and also, you know, the navigation piece. So I'm doing a lot with corporate organizations, making sure that when they say, yes, we want people with disabilities in our organization, I can call them on it, because you can't play, you know,
That's right.
you can't play inclusion. It's real. You know, I've gone into organizations where I've done the red, yellow, green, brought the facilities manager in and said, can you do this from a wheelchair? Do you think this common area is accessible? And I can tell you from 3 to 4 feet, it's not. So wherever that intersects, and making more opportunities for people with disabilities who want to do this kind of work. They have been speaking engagements that I could not do for whatever reason. And those people in my community who were looking to do it or were capable of doing it were able to fill that gap. So I don't know. I don't know if I answered your question, but you know, I'm going to do whatever I'm called to do.
I love it. I love it. We've got a question from Norma. Before I go over to Norma, I've got one quick thing that I want to just kind of thank you for bringing out this, because, and it's that what you said, the independability. Is that the word? Is that because so many within the disability community don't want to be dependent on someone else, where we're all dependent on people. Everybody's dependent upon someone. And so you finding your independence, and you're comfortable with your level of independence, but accepting help, accepting that's so powerful in so many ways. So
it's
powerful in so many
impossible.
ways.
It's impossible otherwise.
Yes.
And how socially connected can we be if we believe that we can do everything we need all the time? I mean, we have to connect with each other. We're social beings. We were created to connect with each other and to love on each other and to support each other. And until we, you know, become humble and transparent, that can never happen. And what a horrible place it would put you if you don't know the difference. Because again, in therapy, I was told that was my goal. And had I not questioned that, I would still be in a bubble.
That's amazing. Norma, you've got a question. Come off mute and ask your question or make your comment.
Hey, Yvette, how are you?
Hey, Norma.
Describe yourself.
Oh yes. Norma Stanley, short hair, glasses, floral shirt with blues and pinks and things in there, long earrings, brown skin. And thank you for all that you shared. You shared a lot that I didn't know about you, and you've been a mentor of mine for a while. You said something about having all these resources. There's so much that you can't even find them. And that is a real issue in the community. And that's something that, I mean, people come to me all the time that you would think would know to go to the ones that have been here forever. They can't find the information. How do we fill that gap? Because the parents, I advocate for the parents who have children like my daughter. And how do you fill that gap? How are we to, and it's a broad question, but just, it concerns me because it's still happening. My daughter's 33 years old, and there's so many things that are not being addressed that wasn't addressed when she was born, and still not, and there's all these organizations. That's something that needs to be threaded somehow. And we need to find a way to do it cohesively. And that has been a problem in my estimation, in that there's competitions among the organizations that's supposed to be providing the information. It's just weird. And from your perspective, what would you suggest? First of all, and definitely making sure parents feel encouraged that they can get the help. And just, you know, how can we as community servants better help them?
That's a really great question, Norma. And thank you for asking and being amazing and teaching me about disability economics, because I use it often. But I think as far as the resources are concerned, one of the things we did at your Invisible Disability Group is we understood we didn't need to create a whole nother group. We just needed to leverage the ones that exist and use that disability economics to let them know that we are an $8 trillion industry and that we have expendable income, and to use that in certain spaces makes the shift or the pivot to fight So at the end of the day, as a parent, as an individual with disability, as an individual within the medical community, it's to fight for those areas where you can't find it, make it. What we do is we collect that information and it's on our website, and we actually have organizations vying to get on our website. They are calling us and saying, please put our service on your website, to the point where very early on, we had to vet them to make sure that when they call and say your invisible disability group sent me, that they're getting what they promised, what they were promised. And so I can tell you, kind of do an application process where we say, hey, what are your needs? What are your goals? And all those things very early on. And then we reach out, and sometimes we do have to fight. So these are organizations that we hold accountable. If you want to be on our page, do what you say you're going to do. We don't want to get caught up in the red tape. And if there's red tape, bring it to my attention so we can cut it. We don't open doors for people. We take them off the hinges because they shouldn't have been there in the first place. So it's going to require three things, right? It's going to require that you create community. I didn't know that the 2 years that I was volunteering, that I was building a community and being part of a community that was already built, right? And so find community. And I know you do that so well. The second thing I would say is don't be afraid to fight the system and to hold the powerful accountable, because in most cases we are constituents with a voice that is never heard. So they do kind of whatever they want to do anyway, right? And the third thing I would say is find a place where you feel heard, right? A place where you feel celebrated, not tolerated. And that sounds weird, but you have to have a place where you don't get so frustrated that you are living a stressed life. So now we can call it mental health and self-help, right? And those things are important so that when I do have that moment, and you will have that moment to have that conversation, for your story to be told, it'll be coming from a place of facts and needs, not emotion and tears. Not that those things are not important, but do those in a place where you feel safe, psychologically safe, so that when you have those conversations, unfortunately, through the tears, you may not be making the point you want to. And if you're not comfortable or ready, have someone speak on your behalf, depending on the area of need, whether if it's in medical, have someone in the medical field. If it's in arts, you know who to call. But we need to create the spaces that we need. But before we do that, hold the spaces that are supposed to take care of us in those areas accountable. Remember, we have state, we have federal, we have national, we have so many different levels of support that are put in place. Hold them accountable. And gosh, I came into this community with a big mouth and it hasn't shrunk. So I am happy to be that voice. And again, I love getting in the way. So I hope that answered your question, Norma.
Yes, thank you. I just have to get louder.
Yes. Oh, and not just louder, but grow. Like Amen. You can't be the only voice. You never Amen. Should have to walk alone. We know in this community that there's no issue we have that 1,000 others in our immediate circle don't have. And so that collective voice is powerful, whether it be in the form of signatures, whether it be in the form of a silent protest, whatever you have to do, but you have a community that you can ask, and you don't have to do this alone.
Thank
awesome.
you.
Awesome. I see Christy. Hey, Christy. Christy has a question. Go ahead.
You're muted.
Oh, you're muted. Hold on. Can you unmute her?
I hear you.
Okay.
I can hear
you now.
Yes, we got you.
Hi. Okay, I am a beautiful yellow African or Black woman with blonde short hair like Myrna's, but I think mine's curlier, Myrna. That's because you know why? I haven't combed it in about 3-4 days. I'm wearing a hot pink glasses.
Yes.
And my background is a window, my living room window, and a ceiling fan, and a picture over to the side. Kind of bland in here. You're not missing too much. But Yvette, I don't have any questions. I just have a comment. I just want to say I commend you so much
Oh,
for all your work and what you have done, with your career and what you are doing, for the disability community. I've now been in the community over, I stopped counting after 30 years. My husband had the nerve to ask me today if I was getting senile. So, because the people at the Taco Bell place messed up the order. And then he's gonna blame it on me like I'm senile. I said, no, I told you the right thing. They didn't get it right. They're young and they're not getting it right. So, I got your back, sister. I'm with you 101% with all the issues you are addressing about education, involvement, especially politically. I've been very active with who's now our previous district legislator. And I was down in the Capitol the other day and they passed a bill that was just unreal. I couldn't believe it. Now that I am going into aging with a disability, I am over 60. I'm not adding the other two. I count in increments of 5 and 10 now.
okay.
So I'm still 60. But anyway, they passed a bill that is dealing with quotas, that only one caregiver per 25 patients that they need in home health care institutions, nursing homes. Do you know I almost fell out my seat? I'm almost in there. I tried to contain myself so they wouldn't pull me out of this hearing. And there was only one woman in there addressing and advocating, letting them know this is just not, feasible. It's not acceptable. It's not right. And the committee passed it so it could go to the floor anyway. And like I said, people really don't realize how much these issues are, their day is coming. It's going to affect them.
Right.
Their turn is coming.
Yes.
And I also want to put in a plug about my new book that's coming out. Thankful, grateful, and appreciative, Myrna. I am so grateful, thankful, and appreciative for you and all my colleagues and friends that are doing and stepping up, and Norma too, mothers that have lived the life of dealing with, their children with disabilities. We just can't thank them and be grateful and appreciative enough, so we can really understand where we are at, where we've been, and where we're going.
Well said. Well said. And we do have allies. As we're plugging, there is a call coming up next week by a political member who wants to answer questions. And so I'll share that, but we have so many allies in the state of Georgia. And you said it so well. If we live long enough, you will experience either a temporary or a permanent disability. Prior to my disability, I don't know that I could even spell the word. And now I can't stop saying it. And some people say things about the word disability, but it is the word used in the Americans with Disabilities Act. Right. So as I advocate for you, I have to use the language that they understand.
Well, they approve.
They approve, they understand, they hear, they respond to. Yeah. So in my social spaces, I may say something else, but there are allies. And that's another example of independability. Yeah. My independence depends on your hearing and understanding who I am and what I need. So that's a really good effort and a really good point that you made, because if you'd like to speak offline or share it with me, just because it's gone to the floor, it doesn't mean it has to stay there. So we can
absolutely
dial it back. We can dial it back.
And it went through a committee.
Yeah, okay.
It hasn't gone through the floor yet.
Oh, good.
But it's gone through the committee to hear it.
I want to
yeah.
I want to jump in because there's some folks that are wanting to making some comments, and we're coming to the close of things.
Okay,
So
okay.
just from a timing, so Christy, if you don't mind, we've got Dana who says, "Oh, she says yes, okay. I love hearing you talking about Yvette. I love hearing you, Yvette. Wow, you are awesome. Please don't stop." And then also Tamara says, "I like what you're speaking about. You are good." And so thank you very much, you guys, for giving the shout out for Yvette for that. What Yvette and Christy were just talking about, we need political activism. At the end of the day, Christy doesn't need to be the only person, there in their county and city and federal situations.
Oh
We
no.
all have a voice.
Yeah.
And so thank you, Christy. Christy is a former board member of SHOWAbility, and we're very grateful for her and her continued activism for us and for all persons. Um, Last thing, I just want you to tell everybody, Yvette, on about your website, how to connect with you, and just kind of give us your information so that we can follow you.
Absolutely. So I think we might have said it earlier, crown to ground to gown just talks about my total transition from wearing the crown to hopefully wearing the gown really soon, to get into those political spaces, because unfortunately it is sometimes required for the eyes to open and the ears to hear. But to reach me, of course, is Yvette PEGUES on all platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. If you're comfortable spelling my last name, you can find me anywhere. Our organization is yourinvisible.disability.com. YOUR invisible, INVISIBLE, and disability, DISIBILITY.com. And of course, I can be reached, through Myrna online. And if you need to contact me by phone, that's 844-480-0081. I believe all that information will be in the comments or somewhere in the posts of this live. But I am so excited to be part of this community and part of a place that, I just have never been stronger as an individual. And I believe that I share that strength because of the community that I connect with. So thank you everyone for joining and all the kind words and all the hard work, but we're stronger together.
Awesome, awesome. Twanda says you look amazing, and thanks for sharing with us today. So that you got a supportive team as part of this on group of our master classes. So we appreciate you being mastery of all that you do, and we wish you much luck in your not luck but success in your doctoral program. When you're I don't know about doctoral, they're like forever, 5 years. There's some forever long.
December, literally, it was God, because the campus has changed. They now have ramps, they now have disability services, they now have faculty and students accountable, none of which was there before I got there. So yeah, we had to change the campus to change the world one step at a time. So yes, pray for me.
Yes. And I'm happy that you're going to be going into churches, because they are the least accessible facilities. They're grandfathered in. The pulpits are not accessible. Choir lofts are not accessible. So we have a huge issue with that. So thank you so very much. Christy, you have something else real quick?
We might have to team up on these churches. We will have to team up, because you won't believe what you're in. And I was gonna say I'm envious of you, because no one ever asked me about being Miss Black, Miss Wheelchair America, or Miss. Out of 60 years, that's okay. I am Miss Wheelchair America.
I think you can still be in the pageant.
Yes, you can definitely be in the pageant, and you can wear my crown. Yes.
Let me tell you something. I got one. I got a crown.
That's all right. You guys, we got Yvette's number.
Here's some crowns right here.
I love it. Everybody
gonna make some differences too. Give them color crowns.
Thank
I
you so
appreciate
very
it.
much. Yvette's a number is in the chat for those of you. Thank you, Norma, for including that and putting that out there. You guys, thank you for so much. We'll be back same time next month, and we look forward to seeing you. And please register and sign up. Yvette, thank you so very
Thank
much.
you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, bye everybody.
Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Woo, woo.